welcome back. It's been like a couple weeks that we've missed.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. And we had conference that happened, which can be a really tender, sensitive time for people who have left the church.
Yes, it can.
And I know we kind of talked about it, and you were very sensitive to some of the things that were said at the women's conference about Heavenly Mother.
Because it was exactly what we talked about, that we knew or we thought was going to happen.
In their kindest, prettiest voice, the patriarchy says that's enough. Jesus didn't do that, didn't worship Heavenly Mother, so we can't do that. We shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, and he never said to pray to her, so we shouldn't pray to her.
And it's extremely hurtful to a lot of people. You see all of the backlash after is that she's not allowed to be in our lives. So that was really hard. And then of course we have Elder Oaks with his family. This is what a family looks like, black and white talk that he always gives. Yeah,
it's same shit, different day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of what you said. You said, they give us an inch and then we expect a mile, the women of the church and stuff. But why are we surprised? This is the patriarchy. This is what the church is. They will never change on this. They're never going to say that, we can have Heavenly Mother. Yeah. And they're never going to say gays can get married in the temple. They're never going to give us that. So why are we so surprised when it keeps happening over and over and over?
Yeah, and it's almost like this thing. I think I said to you, I'm pissed off that I'm pissed off.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
why am I letting this impact
why do
me?
I care so much?
But you're still working through it because like I told you, I've been exactly where you are. Where I'm so mad. I'm like, why is this getting to me? And I would immediately think of when they say, people who've left the church can't leave it alone. There is a lot of reasons that we can't leave it alone.
I definitely can't leave it alone.
We're hurt and we're angry, but it doesn't last forever. You will move past it. Like this conference, I didn't pay one bit of attention to it. Yeah. That was pretty much the first time that I didn't get on social media. I didn't care. Yeah. I pretty much knew what was, we're always going to have the families are a man and a woman and nothing else. And, we can tolerate the gays, but they're not, they're not going to make it. And then now the Heavenly Mother thing is...
Heavenly Mother hasn't been brought up for a long time. Right.
We live in a motherless house.
Us women, we've gotten out of control.
Oh, absolutely.
We're just talking about her way too much.
Have you seen the trend going on now of women wearing pants to church?
I have.
I have one in my neighborhood. She's very outspoken about inclusion. And I mean, I just love her. She'll email me sometimes or text me and she started wearing pants to church, and she'll take pictures of it. And there's this whole movement. I should find out. It's on Instagram, but it's interesting. One woman started it. Like, let's wear comfortable clothes to church. And so the pants is what's happening. Yes.
Well, I can't remember if I told you this, but I wore pants to my nephew's baptism a couple weeks ago.
I don't know if you did.
I don't know if I did.
How was it?
It was great. Yeah. I didn't feel one bit weird. Yeah. In fact, my daughter wore pants too. My 9-year-old. She wore the cutest little, kind of a jumper, where the pants and shirts are connected. Darling. It was dressy. We weren't
disrespectful at all.
We weren't looking like scrounges or anything. And I wore dress pants and
Jesus probably judged your pants. Because Jesus cares what we wear. Yeah. Jesus walked around in robes and sandals. Yeah. He had a beard. I mean, he went completely against the LDS dress code. So
and that's what cracks me up when the church says, well, Jesus didn't do that, so we're not going to.
Right.
Okay.
We pick and choose.
Yeah. Let's apply that to everything in the church and then see how the church looks.
I know.
Because literally the church has no resemblance of anything Jesus taught. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't.
True. Yeah, don't be sorry.
In fact, in many ways, it has the exact opposite of what Jesus taught. Yeah. It's like not even close.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's insane.
Totally true.
So anyway, today we are going to talk about this kind of a big, huge part of our journeys out of the church has been trying to learn how to trust ourselves again.
I think this is like the main component because you can't leave the church without listening to yourself. Ooh, yeah. And we're brought up being taught not to listen to ourselves. Especially as women, we're supposed to listen to the patriarchy, 100%. The leaders, the men, the Holy Ghost, right? We're not...
And they're all men.
They're all men. We don't trust ourselves. Yes. Growing up, the Holy Ghost to me was a male presence.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what we were always taught. And the only woman we ever hear about is Eve.
Right.
And she did the wrong thing.
We talked about, she was a shit show, right?
Yeah.
She did the exact wrong. That's our first story about a woman is.
Exactly.
She disobeyed God.
She disobeyed God. And therefore, women were taught to be afraid.
Right. Yes.
There's a scripture that from seminary that we learned. Oh, the cunning plan of the evil one. Oh, the vainness and frailties and foolishness of men. When they are learned, they think they are wise. Mm-hmm. Okay? There are so many scriptures like this. The other ones, like, lean not unto thine own understanding.
Yep.
Like, listen to God in all ways, right?
Well, they throw it in all different ways. Doubt your doubts.
Doubt your doubts.
Which, it's everywhere.
Yeah. There's multiple primary songs. My favorite, Follow the Prophet, Don't Go Astray. If there was ever like a cult-like brainwashing song in the history of songs, that is it.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the prophet, follow. And it's just like repeating that phrase over and over and over again. Don't go astray.
Yeah.
And he knows the way. And speaking of the prophet, this is just a little side note. I think this is really interesting, and I've been kind of following it, and it's a little bit anecdotal. It may not be fact, but I believe it's probably true, that there is kind of a competition, that President Nelson always felt this competitive nature toward Gordon B. Hinckley, right?
Yes.
Because Gordon B. Hinckley loved and embraced Mormon, word Mormon.
Yeah, they really butted heads on that.
Yes, and Nelson didn't, right? Okay. Well, he could not wait to become prophet so that he could undo what Gordon B. Hinckley did with the whole Mormon thing.
His wife has come out and said that. What's her name?
Ooh.
Wendy?
Oh, that there were things he couldn't wait to do.
She said he was just waiting to get the chance to change the name.
Well, here the couple different funny things. After this last conference and the temple announcements that he gave, he has now surpassed Hinckley in temple announcements, which I know was his goal.
Right.
I don't know that, but I swear, like, that's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
That was his goal, was to surpass him.
We've never had a prophet announce more temples being built.
And Gordon B. Hinckley was known for the temple announcements because that was his big push, right? Yeah. Well, Nelson had to beat him on that.
Right. He's got an ego that is obvious, yeah.
And yesterday in the church news, a big story about how now President Nelson is the oldest prophet to have ever lived. By 1 week, he's beat Gordon B. Hinckley.
Make sure that's published.
It's all over.
I saw it on Facebook, man. Yeah. I saw it. It was there.
I cracked up laughing at that because I just think the prophet is so...
His ego is... I loved Gordon B. Hinckley.
I did too.
He had a fun, caring, light...
Grandpa-like.
Yes, just a cuddly... But Nelson He reminds me of the bad guy on Star Wars, the really old guy that...
Oh!
Do you know what I mean? That wears the robes and his face is saggy and he just looks evil.
He reminds me of Mr. Burns.
Yes! Yes, from The Simpsons. Yes.
So yeah, when I hear that Follow the Prophet song, I just picture Rusty up there and like, it's just gross.
We are worshiping this man.
Hero worship.
We worship the prophet more than, and they've set it up that way. The songs we sing. What's the sacrament song? Praise to the man.
Oh, praise to the man.
We are worshiping a man more than we are Jesus.
Oh yeah, the prophet is talked about.
We put those apostles like high up on a pedestal. Mm-hmm. They are the end all be all, and they've been putting women. All we've ever known is we sit outside the room that they meet in. Sometimes they'll let us join in on a conference on the outskirts. Women are always on the outskirts. We're never allowed to be fully apart.
Front and center, right in the middle. Oh, I thought it was so funny that in General Conference, it was a huge deal that a woman was conducting the women's session. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but the men are still there, and they immediately stand up and say, "We're letting you, we're letting you conduct here."
Yeah,
we're still in charge.
We're still here to make sure you don't fuck it up, you stupid women,
because you cannot do it yourself.
Because we don't have the priesthood, we couldn't possibly be able to
have a meeting without them.
No. Can you imagine? But you know what that does is for the believing members, they're like, this is good church.
Yes.
See what they're doing? This is great.
Yes. But isn't it so exciting that women get to conduct?
Right. When you really step back, it's like, this is pathetic.
Yeah. I was actually going to say at my nephew's baptism, they asked my mom to be a witness, and you would think that she had just gotten won the lottery.
Yeah.
She was so happy.
They'll let kids be a witness.
She was so
We've now allowed women
proud
and children to be witnesses at baptism.
Yes, because women have eyes. They can see too.
Wow, who knew?
It's so fascinating to me to see how excited and proud she was to have that privilege.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I just think that's another way of putting women in their place.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you this. And I don't think she even realizes that, she thinks that's such a gift, but a man handed you that.
They decided
to give it to you when they were ready.
Yeah.
And there's still parameters around it that are controlled by men.
Seriously.
So yeah. So sorry, we kind of got off topic, but that's a huge part of my coming out of the church was, number one, I love that you said that in order for us to leave, we had to decide to trust ourselves.
That was the first time.
And to listen to our own knowing, right? So I actually have one other example of a time when I trusted myself and listened to myself. So I wanted to tell this story because this is my earliest memory of actually recognizing that I was able to make my own choice, okay? Mm-hmm. So when I was on my mission and I decided I wanted to come home, I prayed about it and I felt like that is what I wanted to do. And whatever my motives were, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, some of it was just, I thought that it would be easier to come home and get married. And it was incredibly hard on my mission, right? But also, I knew that I wanted to marry my husband, right? And I felt really good about that decision, okay? And when my dad found out about this, he marched straight to the temple and, spent some time in the temple praying about it. And then he called me and he said, I went to the temple today and I received an answer that you are not supposed to come home and get married.
I didn't know that.
Yes. He told me this and he made it sound like this is revelation.
Right.
And you are not supposed to come home.
And you got to trust him because he's the priesthood holder over your own self.
He's my patriarch.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was devastated.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie. I respected my dad.
Sure.
I trusted my dad. I had always listened to my dad. And I had been taught that he was the person over me.
Right.
My priesthood leader.
He would receive revelation specifically for you.
Yes.
For his children, yeah.
Yes. So I didn't say a lot to my dad. I thanked him. I was sad. I was confused. I was a lot of things. And I just said, okay, thanks for that. And I'm going to think some more about it, and hung up the phone. And I just bawled. Mm-hmm. I bawled and bawled. And I called my mission president, because when him and I had the conversation and he was
he was supportive.
He was very supportive.
Yeah.
And I was so happy and so relieved. And I felt this giant weight lifted off me. And yes, he's listening to me. He's trusting me.
Right.
And then this just dashed all my hopes to pieces. So I called my mission president. I said, hey, this is what happened. This is what my dad says. And my mission president stopped me and he said, you have the right to your own personal revelation. Did you know that? Because you can listen to your own self. Your dad isn't the one marrying this person. And your dad, although he is a priesthood holder and a patriarch for you, you have the right to receive your own personal revelation. And that was groundbreaking to me. I had never in my life considered that my personal revelation could take precedence over what my dad said.
Right.
So when he said that to me, it sounds silly, but that was life-changing.
Right.
And I've never forgotten that. Something clicked in me that I was like, really? Yeah. Holy shit. I can listen to my own self?
For a minute, you're devastated thinking, I gotta stay now.
Yeah.
I
should listen to my dad because that's the right thing to do. And so I called my dad back and I told him that.
And his reaction was?
Well, it's your choice,
He's probably disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, he was disappointed.
Yeah.
I think he dealt with it as best he could.
Yeah.
He was never, like, rude. He didn't, disown me or anything. He just said, well, I think it's a mistake. But
right. I love it. They leave these heavyweight words on you.
You're making a mistake, but, yeah. So I've never forgotten that story. And I've shared it so many times with, like, my young women when I was in the young women's presidency and teaching classes. I would share that all the time because I wanted to teach the girls that they could listen to their own hearts.
Yeah, I don't remember ever learning that. No, I mean, you could receive personal revelation, but only if it aligned with what the prophet said, what the scripture said, what we're telling you to.
Only if it aligns, right?
Right.
Because if it's different than what somebody else says, then you're doing it wrong.
That really
you got the wrong answer.
Screwed me up.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's one example. Now, did that, change everything in my life? No, not necessarily. Because I still totally bought into the idea of listening to the prophet and doing what they said. And I still subverted my own knowing many times for what, the leadership of the church said, right? But in that one small way, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think that's the best decision I ever made. Obviously, to marry my husband who, that's the best decision I've ever made.
Right.
So I'm pretty proud of the fact that I did listen to my own self in that case. I didn't always do that with everything.
And how old were you then?
I was 21.
So 21, and that's your first conscious memory of listening to your inner self.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why?
Totally.
So my wondering is, how do you help someone listen to themselves? Like, it's not, if I had come to you a few years ago and said, listen, the church is crap. I need you to read all this stuff. I'm leaving. This is, if I had presented you with all of that while you were still fully in, I think that would have been very difficult for you to listen. I think you would try to maintain a relationship, but I think that there would be some walls that go up to protect yourself from what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
It would have been the same for me. Like there's no straight path to do this. There's no checklist exactly on how to listen to yourself when you've been taught your whole life that you should not listen to yourself, that you need to. And why do we do that? As women, I think we do that because we are so attuned to please people. We want to please people. How is this going to make me look? How will people feel about this decision? When I didn't get married in the temple, that was huge. I felt such guilt and shame at what I was, I knew what my family thought. What, I knew what that meant, and I still moved forward and held on to that guilt and shame for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So I know why we do it. We're taught to be pleasers.
Yes.
And we're worrying, what does my mom think of this decision? What will my neighbor think? What's my,
totally.
What is this going to look like? What are people going to perceive?
Totally.
That's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. There's this thing about not disappointing people.
Right. And it keeps us in our place.
Yeah.
And makes it so much harder to. So I'm wondering, what is the catalyst that finally pushed us to finally really listen to ourselves and say, this is not good for me. This is not working for me.
Yeah.
I need to examine further, and I'm going to give myself permission to ask some questions and research a little bit.
I think for me, there was a few small steps. So I think my husband leaving the church and then seeing that he was still himself and that he was still a good person, that planted a seed in my mind that said, maybe what I've been taught isn't 100% true.
Me too. I watched him leave. Yeah. And he didn't explode. Yeah. Your marriage didn't implode. Everything seemed, and I was watching for years.
Yeah. And that wasn't necessarily that I decided to trust myself, or at least that wasn't a conscious thing. It was distrusting first what I had originally put as my authority figure, right? It was distrusting that. So there were little cracks in the foundation of like the patriarchy and listening to those men, right? And then the next one was my daughter.
Right.
And it was like, I knew that they were wrong then. I knew that they were.
So it's almost like there's something catastrophic that hits your world.
Yes.
That has to kind of knock you.
Yes.
Off that plane of thinking.
Yes, because I think that had to happen in order for me to leave. Because I had to have a crack. I had to have a question. I had to have like
a real deep need to know like what
and to say that they could be wrong.
Right. Yes.
So that
to ask a question.
Yes.
Is this really?
That opened up the door to recognizing that it's possible that they could not be right.
Yeah.
And then when I recognized that, then it goes further, right? Then you're like, no, they're definitely not right. And then if they're not right about this, they're not right about that, you know? And then it's just
a domino.
Everything just starts falling apart.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's might be the key to a faith crisis or transition is something really rocking your core beliefs.
Yeah. Something making you stop and question what you've been taught and whether it's right.
And mine was families are forever, forever. But then my son wanted to leave the church and all this stuff, and it was blowing up my life. And so I really had to question, well, my family's fucked up. So we're not going to be together forever. So what the hell's the point? That's what opened it up for me. So you almost need an event. Yes. You need an event. Yeah.
And I kind of want to go back to the idea of where this comes from to begin with, like where the distrust of our own selves comes from. And I mean, we talked a little bit about it, like learning the scriptures and the songs and the teachings of like being submissive like a child and, trusting the prophet and their words and stuff. And this part so Untamed,
love it.
We've talked about it, right? Love it, love it, love it. It was a huge thing because it's literally the entire book is about listening to your own knowing, right?
Yes, yeah.
And she talks about the Adam and Eve story. Actually, she says the lesson of Adam and Eve, the first formative story I was told about God and a woman was this: when a woman wants more, she defies God, betrays her partner, curses her family, and destroys the world.
Yep.
So I love that. She says,
not dramatic at all.
I know, right? She says, we were not born distrusting and fearing ourselves. That was part of our taming. We were taught to believe that who we are in our natural state is bad and dangerous. They convinced us to be afraid of ourselves.
Yeah, that's totally true. 100%.
Yeah. The only thing that was ever wrong with me was my belief that there was something wrong with me.
Right. I love that.
She said, I quit spending my life trying to control myself and began to trust myself. We only control what we don't trust. I loved that because isn't that so true? Like when something feels like it's not what we want, we try to control it.
Right. And Brené Brown says control is the opposite of love.
Yes.
Right? Yes. I think that's what she says.
This is what she says right here. And I don't know if Brené Brown says it too, but she says we only control what we don't trust. We can either control ourselves or love ourselves, but we can't do both.
Right.
Love is the opposite of control.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And I think Brené Brown said that too.
Yeah. Love demands trust. And then she says, I trust myself to have my own back. So my allegiance is to the voice within. I'll disappoint everyone else before I'll disappoint myself. Me and myself, we are till death do us part.
I love it.
I loved that so much. So reading this book was so impactful for me because it was the first time that
it's giving you permission.
Yeah,
like, it's okay. You can do this.
Yeah. It really was one of the first times that I ever actually voiced. I had little moments where, like I said, like with my husband, where I was like, maybe they're wrong about people who leave the church, maybe my thoughts are wrong about this. But this was the first time that I was like, oh my God, I know within myself what's right. I just need to listen to myself.
I know, isn't it? It's like shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking when you've been taught otherwise.
It doesn't mean you're going to have all the answers. You're going to get it right every time.
Right.
But man, it's powerful to know that you are capable of listening to yourself and making decisions and choices. You don't have to surround yourself with other people that say, yes, that's okay, or no, it's okay. You don't need everyone's opinions.
Totally.
Yeah.
Don't we do that so much?
Permission.
Their permission, their blessing, their acceptance of what you're doing. Like, we have been conditioned so much to do that.
As since a little girl, like you're supposed to grow up, get married, and have babies. That's supposed to fulfill you. And if you choose something else, there's going to be some consequences. There's some shame in that. If you decide not to have kids and have a career, there's going to be some fallback.
Yeah.
But if you have kids and you're not fulfilled with being a stay-at-home mom, I mean, it's like, we can't win.
And that when you're not fulfilled, do you think something's wrong with you?
Yes.
Because
what have I done wrong? I'm not doing enough.
You're supposed to feel.
You want to try to, you got to control your feelings and
There's so much fear. I was talking to my daughter the other day about this, and she said when she first decided to leave the church that there was fear about making decisions. Because before that, it was like she always knew, just do what the brethren say to do.
There's a checklist. You know exactly what to do. That's why the church is a safe place
for a lot of people.
Feel safe. You know, okay, if I do this and this and this, I'm going to be happy. So I can totally see that.
Yeah. And then suddenly when the whole world's open to you to do whatever you want, I mean, in some ways that can feel really liberating, but it can also feel scary because you're like, well, now I don't have a map. I don't have a roadmap of exactly which turn I'm supposed to take. Am I going to mess
this up? This being your life.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I've had to tell my girls so many times, you know what? There's not one right and one wrong answer.
Yeah.
Just like listen to what your heart tells you. Right. And I think it takes practice, right? Because we haven't had it our whole lives.
Right.
We haven't done that. We've listened to the Spirit, which always aligns with what the church has taught us, right? Like that's what we know the Spirit to be. It's like it only testifies of truth. So if your idea in your heart is different than that, then you're wrong. So I always just listen to that. Like, choose God, choose the gospel, choose whatever.
You can never go wrong.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so I think in some ways you get paralyzed over making decisions.
Well, sure, because if you're always choosing what the church says, supposedly what God says, then you're choosing the church over your gay child.
Totally.
You're choosing the church over, a multitude of things.
Over your own self.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that has helped me a lot, because I think this is a process that we have to work on because we have abandoned ourselves.
It's exercise for sure.
Yeah. Our whole lives we have, one example is when the 2015 policy came out, I knew that felt wrong, but I said to myself, well, they must know something that I don't know. And I put my trust in the leaders of the church.
My favorite line is, it's all going to work out. Yeah. It'll all work out in the end. I don't need to worry about this now. It'll work out in the end. That's my favorite thing that I was fed growing up.
Yep. And I think that you think that I must not understand God's plan well enough. If I don't feel good about something, it must be me. It's not them that are wrong.
If I worked harder, read my scriptures more, prayed more, knew the gospel better, I would understand this. But I'm not, I'm clearly not doing it enough, so I don't understand it.
Right. And one of the things I was thinking about is, I don't know if this is true for you, but definitely true for me. Did I ever just sit with it and like listen to myself, listen to my inner knowing, like tap into that?
How would you?
I never.
How would you even know how to do that? No,
right?
We weren't ever taught that. No,
right. Yeah. And I think it was always that it was like this mental gymnastics to like skip over that,
yes,
or to just dismiss whatever thoughts we had, right? Thought stopping techniques.
Well, cognitive dissonance sets in, right? Where you're like, this doesn't feel right, but the church is always right. So it's like you said, you skip over it quickly because it's uncomfortable.
So we never listen to our body, our intuition, to our gut, to our, inner knowing. So yeah, it is a process of learning it. And there's a thing in Braving the Wilderness from Brene Brown where she talks about the 7 ingredients of trust. And I think, when you hear that, you think at least my initial thought is learning how to trust somebody else. But this applies to trusting our own selves just as much as anyone else, right? It can be applied in both ways. But so I wanted to go over these 7 ingredients. So the first one is boundaries, right? That seems to be kind of a buzzword lately, right? Like, let's set boundaries. But I'm going to read this part from the book. It says, I know what's okay with me and what's not okay, and I communicate that with you. If we can set and keep boundaries, we start to feel more safe with ourselves. Have your own back, and that makes you trust yourself more when you show up and keep yourself safe. So we have to communicate our boundaries. And part of learning how to trust ourselves, yes, you can set boundaries with other people, but when you do that and when you require other people to respect your boundaries, you increase your trust for your own self. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like you're having your own back.
Right.
When you're
standing up for yourself.
Yes,
you're
saying,
standing up for yourself. I won't tolerate certain things. Yeah.
Right. There was a moment where I was like having this come apart with my mom, because every time I talked to my mom, I would get off the phone and I would be so pissed off because, she said this or she said that, and I didn't stand up for myself and I didn't do this, right? And I was having a conversation with a friend who's super wise about this, and she said, you know what? You're not actually mad at your mom. You're mad at your own self for not having your own back.
And that makes sense.
And that's frustrating. She's like, I feel like it's shame coming up in you for not.
So you're not
standing up for yourself.
Yeah, you're angry with yourself for
Because why would I be angry at my mom for doing the same thing she's always done? Why would I expect anything different? Yeah. It's the same thing always. What I'm actually mad at is that I didn't stick up for my own freaking self.
Right.
So the boundaries thing, I think, it's very tough. It's hard for me. But if you can learn how to set and keep boundaries, setting boundaries isn't the hardest part, it's the keeping. It's the requiring them to keep. But when you have your own back, you start to gain trust for yourself, right? And the other thing that I've noticed is that the people who are benefiting the most from you being a people pleaser are the ones who are not going to like the boundaries. Those are the people who are going to step back from you as soon as you start standing up for yourself.
That's going to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I love that I don't know, just that phrase, having your own back. You can have your own back. I love that. So I have to remind myself that often. So the second one is reliability. And this kind of goes with the first one of what I was saying, is that if we don't show up for ourselves the way that we say we're going to show up for ourselves, like if we don't stick up for ourselves when we've set a boundary with our mom and we're having that conversation and we don't stick up for ourselves, that's, you not being reliable to your own self.
It's not going to feel good.
And it's not going to feel good. So shame comes up with that. And she says, whenever you notice that you aren't being reliable with what you said you were going to do, get curious about why. What is holding you back? Why am I not showing up for myself? What is hijacking my plan? And I think that's a good question to get curious about.
It's like, you got to do some work here. You got to do some work. You can't we're so used to just gliding by on following the checklist that's been set up for us. But this one, you've got to start from ground zero, and you're starting to make your own checklist.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out, and it's work, and it can be uncomfortable and hard.
Yeah. And the thing about constantly worrying about everyone else's feelings, you constantly betray yourself.
Yes.
And it really becomes just such a habit that you don't even know you're doing it.
It's burnout, man. It's the fastest way to do it.
Yep. So the third one is accountability. And she talks about, we all do harm, even though we're all good people, right? And so the accountability piece is being willing to accept apologies and make apologies, give apologies, and to be gentle with ourselves, be honest. We are not bad, even when we do harm.
Well, we're not always going to get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can either beat yourself up, or you can really take that to heart, learn from it, and try better next time. Right.
And the accountability is recognizing the harm.
Right.
And making amends.
Right.
It's not shaming ourselves and saying we're a bad person.
Right.
Right.
It's not the repentance process we grew up.
Yeah. I don't believe in repentance.
I don't either.
I don't believe in sin.
I don't believe that we this one poor man sacrificed himself for all. Can you imagine being a child and being said, this guy died for you? I mean,
yes, I can imagine because I was that child.
Right? It's the impact that has on us. We don't even know the impact that has. That we are the cause of this man's death. Every mistake we made. I mean, what is that? That is really mentally messed up.
Yep. Which is why, I mean, that's such a good thing to bring up because this is literally what, Good Friday? Isn't today Good Friday? I don't know.
No idea.
Easter's on Sunday. This whole Easter is kind of triggering to me right now.
I agree.
I'm having a serious problem with.
It is Good Friday.
It's Good Friday.
I don't know.
Yeah, Passover. So this is the day the Passover happened and he was crucified or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't even care. But that whole story is so messed up.
It really is. And it's so violent, and it is. It's awful.
And it's codependent.
He bled from every pore, and then they nailed his hands to a. I mean, this is what we're taught as early as I can remember.
And we're supposed to try to ingest that and feel the deepness of what that meant,
right?
And how that felt.
And you better be grateful, and you better do everything you can to make up for that.
So, of course, whenever people talk about the atonement and Christ's suffering, they cry.
Yes.
See, I always took that as that means it's true because you feel the Spirit, right? That's feeling the Spirit. No, that's feeling emotion about a tragedy.
Yes. That you're responsible for.
That you're responsible.
That you didn't even know that you're responsible for. And every time you mess up.
You didn't ask for this.
Yeah. You're a drop of blood out of his pores.
Oh my God,
the Gethsemane story. I mean, it's awful.
It's awful.
It's awful.
Yeah, I can't
if you
celebrate
really
Easter.
Examine that. Yeah, Easter is it's terrible. Well,
Easter's
all about he's risen. He overcame and yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know how I feel about any of that.
Yeah.
Well, I do know how I feel. I feel icky.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're on number 4. Number 4 is the vault. And what she talks about here is keeping others' confidences. She says, don't bond with people over sharing juicy or vulnerable gossip. We are harming the trust levels in our relationships when we share intimate things with others. She also, and this is how it connects to us, is that you don't have to disclose everything about yourself. Sometimes, she says, we share things as a way to self-protect or to put ourselves down so that others can't. Or we
beat them to it.
Yeah.
We do an emotional dump.
Yes.
We vomit out all this information.
I mean,
and when we think we're doing it for self-protection, I don't know. It is messed up.
It's really weird, right? Because I have found myself so many times totally putting myself down.
Right. Yes.
To almost as a way to make the other people around me feel better.
Yes.
That's so bizarre.
It's kind of a sickness especially I think within the Mormon culture.
Especially with women. Men don't do that. I don't think
they do. Well, not nearly as much.
Not to the extent that women do, right?
Yeah.
We shrink. Oh my God.
Yes.
We're
supposed to disappear, right?
Yeah.
The disappearing act.
We shrink and we disappear and we make sure that everyone knows that we're not perfect and there, all the things wrong with us, we're going to spill out and let everybody know about so that they don't think
they feel better about themselves.
They'll feel better.
Or they'll want to be our friend. I don't know.
What is that?
I don't know.
It's so messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the vault. And I think that's something
good stuff, though.
I'm going to have to really put some thought and work into that.
I love to give and get a little bit of juicy gossip. But I have learned that there's certain people you can trust and do that with.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of that is
fine.
Is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I understand
the concept.
Yes, there are some consequences if you dump.
Well, and especially when it comes to actual confidences, right? Yes. That's different than just sharing, what you heard about, what's going on with somebody.
And I think we all know the difference.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, but yeah, how it relates to, putting our own selves down and self-protecting, I thought was really interesting because I never would have thought of that. Okay, the next one is integrity. And she talks about staying in alignment with your values. And that, when you have honest conversations and do difficult things, that builds trust. So she says, stick with your values over doing what feels easy. Choose courage over comfort. show up in vulnerable and courageous ways. So yeah, I think integrity is literally the reason why I left the church.
Yeah.
Because my integrity would not allow me
once you knew
to lie about what I knew.
Yeah.
You can't keep going to church and pretending like everything's fine.
How do you do that? Would destroy you.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that people in the church don't have integrity. I'm saying...
No, but once you have the information, most people, they don't have all the information.
Right.
I get what you're saying. Once you've learned some things and you have more information, things change. And it's harder to sit there and show up.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. And some people can. Some people can stay quiet and be mentally out and physically in.
Maybe there's something that they're getting from it that they need. That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
Everyone has their own path out of the church. Some people have to stay or feel like they have to stay for their family members, for their kids, for whatever reason. There's a million reasons why people stay when they don't believe. But for me, I could not do it.
When you said integrity, I immediately thought of the Young Women Proclamation. And I thought these 7 things should be our new, instead of
our values,
faith, divine nature,
individual
worth, integrity. It should be,
it should be these things. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Not all of that.
Right.
Take those away and start fresh.
I know, we really should. But integrity, I think that's always, to me, integrity is like honesty, authenticity, realness. And I've never been able to be a fake person. That's just not in my nature. So when I started having issues in the church, I started speaking up about them. I know, and actually, I'm really impressed by people who are able to keep it all in and keep it under wraps.
Well, everyone's different. They're processing it differently. And
I don't know how they do that. Yeah. But I am just like, I am a word vomiter. Right. I can't keep it in. I don't know what's wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with you. This is part of your process.
Right.
And you want to like help and save others. You're like, maybe if I put this out there, I can help someone else, which it happens. Yeah. You do. Yeah. You reach people. So
So that's not a bad thing. No. Right. Okay. So number 6 is non-judgment. She talks about, allowing yourself to not be okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay. We are all human. You have feelings and needs. Here's the big one. I'm allowed to take up space. We build trust with ourselves when we can ask for the things that we need without judging ourselves.
Yeah, the shrinking part.
There's the shrinking that comes up again. Because there are so many ways in which women, and this ties back to patriarchy and all of this, where we feel like we're not allowed to take up space in the world. Like, how dare I think that I can have a voice and that I have anything important to say?
Well,
right?
we're always scooted to the outside. We have to leave the room. We're squashed down. We're stepped on. We're bypassed.
Totally.
So when that's all you see, that's all you learn, that's all you know.
And I think our own self-judgment oftentimes is worse than anybody else's judgment.
Absolutely.
Our own self-judgment. Yeah. It can be the most toxic to us. So, and then the last one is generosity. And when she's talking about generosity, she's talking about assuming that everyone's doing the best they can. Generous assumptions.
With what they know. With their,
Assume the best of others.
They might not do it the way you would do it, but that's because they're coming from a different experience, a different place,
Right. And also be generous with ourselves. Yeah. Create the most generous story about yourself. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Learn from it and move forward. You will trust yourself more when you can allow yourself some generosity and generous assumptions.
And I think that's it's easier said than done. But also,
absolutely,
as women, we can be so good at tearing each other down. Oh man, mean girls, man, we can do it. I've done it. There's times where I've been angry and mad, and I strike out. Just that I don't feel good about later on. But
obviously,
also you just need a couple of women.
Yes.
Men are great too, but you need a couple of women that love you, support you, cheer you on.
Yes.
If we
validate you.
Yes, if we just all had one or two of these people that we could count on and we could be the same for them. Man, can you imagine what a difference it would make when we're not competing with each other, but we're cheering each other on and helping each other, and we know that this is, it's such a shit show. Let's try to get through it together. We're all in the mud. what a difference that would make. So that's
totally, and that's why I have you.
Well, I mean, that's how I know. Person. Seriously, yes,
right?
Yes,
like
no, and that's how I feel about you. I just need, man, you just really need one person. If you have more, then you're blessed.
Yes, you're lucky if you have more than that. But if you just have one,
you just need one person who is that you can count on to go to and complain and be miserable with,
and be your real self, without any
real, where you don't have to do the pretend. You don't have to. Yes. So if you're looking for that person, be that person. Like try to be that person, really from an authentic place, not wanting anything, and you'll be surprised who you attract into your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that for me, being authentic and real has attracted more realness.
Well, absolutely. Right? You get to people's, we're not doing this fake small talk anymore.
Yes.
We're getting really deep, and that's what we want. We want a deep connection with people. And we're not going to have that with everyone, but you don't need it with everyone.
You don't need it with everyone.
Yeah. Right. And it's a different connection than you will have with like your spouse.
Right.
I mean, that's a totally different thing. There's something about a connection from a woman to another woman that's real and honest that you just can't find any other way. It's so fulfilling.
Yes.
And I think it's so important.
Yeah. And I think that person can be the person who allows you to listen to your inner knowing and trust yourself.
Yes.
Because by sharing and, learning from this other person, I mean, I think that like we have been on this journey together, learning how to trust our own selves.
Right.
Right. Like,
oh man, just walking out of the church together, we kind of, stepped out together. The things we would say about, I remember some conversations we've had where I'm like, okay, she might be, but we were still so timid. Like I wouldn't quite go there. Yeah. I wouldn't quite say that because I was still scared and stuff.
Do you remember when I asked you if you'd read the CS letter?
And I'm like,
you're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, how have we not talked about this?
I'm like, how could I tell you about that? Yeah. Like, I don't know how that, it was rough for my bestest friend to not know where I was.
Yeah.
To keep that. I was keeping that. And that was hard because I share like everything with you.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to be like, I'm a drug addict.
Oh. Yeah.
My life's falling apart.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to keep everything looking pretty.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the church, which is enormously heavy, and nobody knows. It's so hard. Yeah. There's so much we keep and hold in that's so heavy that if we just find that one person that we can share it with to be like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
This is heavy. I've got your back.
Right.
Kind of thing.
When we were finally able to open up about and get really real about that stuff, wasn't that just so like it lifted the hugest weight?
When you have a person that you can like really be open and honest with about your deepest fears and worries, and it's
I think
it's healing.
Initially, I probably pushed you back more in the closet, so to speak, because I was talking about all the fear and sadness I was having about my husband leaving.
Right.
And I was digging my heels in and trying to like double down on my beliefs. And sharing that stuff with you was making you feel like you couldn't share that you were having doubts too, a little bit, right?
Yes. But I also was like trying to be reassuring, like, he's going to be okay.
Yes. And you did do that.
This is going to be fine.
You were like, this isn't as big a deal as you're making it out to be. Well, I mean, you said it in a kind way.
Right. But I'm like, this is not the end. But it's interesting to go back to those thoughts because I had to be careful what I said so that I didn't tip you off. And you know what I mean? We're trying to be so careful what we say, especially within the church. If you're having doubts, don't talk about it.
Well, and I feel sad about that. That's something I wish could have been a little bit different, even though like we eventually got to the place.
Yes.
But I wish for your sake that you didn't have to hold in.
Wouldn't it have been sad if I had actually killed myself?
Oh my God.
And you were like, what the hell was going on? Nobody knew how bad it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, we got to get this out.
Yeah.
We got to be okay with it. We got to be able to talk about it. So, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too much like drilled into us or whatever to numb, to ignore, to just gloss over, to pretend.
Control.
Are we gonna have another episode about this? Like, are we gonna talk? Do you want to talk further about that stuff? And I can edit this
maybe
stuff out.
Yeah.
But like, I really want to, if you're okay with it, I want you to share more about that whole journey with me, because that was life altering, shattering, changing. And it's almost like I can't even go to the place in my brain that thinks about what would have happened.
Yeah, it was definitely a starting over point for sure. It was reset,
like hitting rock bottom.
Yeah. Which I had to do. Yeah. It was either that or, I just, I didn't see any other way out.
Yeah.
So, I know there's lots of moms out there that are self-medicating. I know that there's so many of them that are just trying to white knuckle it.
That just all comes from not listening to ourselves, from like being trained.
You're making choices based on what the patriarchy is telling you to do, not what your heart's telling you to do. So
absolutely, I think it's
a lot of untangling.
It really is. And that's why, I've said it a million times, but if you've not read Untamed, you have to read it.
It's so good. It's everything.
Yeah. This is a group of questions that she asks, and I think it's so important to like kind of sit with these questions and listen to our own selves about it. But she says, why do women find it honorable to dismiss ourselves? The descriptive words of being selfless and tireless, and these things that they
are made out
are
to
so
be
honorable for women.
Attributes when really we're sacrificing ourselves.
And why?
And it's not just ourselves; it trickles down.
It really does. It teaches our kids to do the same.
And
thing.
we sacrifice them in the name of serving others, but we're really doing it to put on a show. It's just like this awful.
Yeah. What's the actual reason?
Cycle.
Yeah. And is it to make ourselves like look good, like we're perfect?
I think some of it is. For sure.
Yeah. Why do we decide that denying our longing is the responsible thing to do? Why do we believe that what will thrill and fulfill us will hurt our people? Why do we mistrust ourselves so completely? And it's because we've been told to.
Yeah, that's all we know.
That goes back to the Eve thing. The first story we hear about a woman listening to her own self ruins the whole world.
Right.
So we're supposed to mistrust everything about our natural...
My husband and I's favorite line we tease in the temple is, the woman made me do it. The woman made me do it. I wouldn't have done it. She made me.
Yeah.
It's her fault.
Yeah. Isn't that so funny in that scene where God is just like, what happened here? What are you doing? And he's like, she did it. It was her fault.
He quickly throws her under the bus. So my husband's always saying, the woman made me do it.
Oh my God.
It's her fault.
That's hilarious.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So of course we feel
that's in the temple video.
Yes. Yes, it is. And it's so disturbing, right?
And what I could never figure out is if she hadn't done that, we wouldn't be here. So why was it such a terrible that she disobeyed God? But that's the only way it's such a contradiction.
It's a total mind fuck. It's like I can't make sense of it. Like, was it good? Was it bad?
What are we supposed to take from this? But what you take from it is it was bad. She disobeyed.
Yeah.
I still can't figure it out.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And I think that's on purpose.
Yes.
They want it to be that way.
Yes. Keep you guessing.
Yeah. One other thing that Glennon Doyle talks about in Untamed is like going to church and like having the pastor teach these things that didn't feel right to her. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, I just resonated with it so much because she's talking about how, the men in the church, they want you to believe and trust them and trust God. But this pastor, is not our connection to God, she says. She's like, my heart and mind were my connection to God. And if I shut those down, I'd be trusting the men who led this church instead of trusting God. I'd be relying on their understanding. Of course. And then she goes on to say that God is inside of us. Mm-hmm. He's not a man outside of us.
We don't have to be in a certain building to find God or connect with God.
Yeah.
You can do it anywhere.
Yeah, but that's definitely not what we're taught.
No.
To
If you're not, you show up on Sunday at your church building and you go to the temple, that's where you find your connection.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you have to do that in order to connect with God or to feel the Spirit. You have to go to church or the temple or whatever.
I think that the key is wait for that thing that's going to rock your world and then get ready to get curious and ask questions and be really honest and open with yourself.
Yes.
And if you can, find someone to talk to about it.
And it's uncomfortable at first.
Oh, it's so miserable. You're fighting it.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a process. But here we are, like our 40s, and we're just now figuring out how to listen to our own.
Well, now being a few years out, it's like, why did I wait so like you can't second guess yourself, but it's so glorious to feel a little bit of freedom, and it's just, I don't know. It's finally like a great place to be.
Yeah. What's interesting is I can directly connect the feeling that I had with leaving my mission and marrying my husband. And it's the same feeling when I left the church and how I feel now. I don't know exactly how to describe it other than a lightness, a freeness.
Maybe it's yourself telling you got this right. This was right.
Yeah. There's not knowing. Any pressure. There's a total knowing that this 100%. Is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
We need a word for that.
I don't know what the word is. Yeah. But it's for the first time in my life, I am listening to myself, and it feels better than anything I've ever done.
Right.
So,
but man, it's not overnight. It's a process and it's work.
And I still have to work on it.
Absolutely.
In every decision I make and everything I do, I'm constantly bringing myself back to, okay, how do I feel about this? In fact, I mean, even this is such a dumb example, but I got this invitation to go to my dad's family reunion. So it's my grandparents' 80th anniversary. Of course, they're both dead.
Yeah.
But so it's their 80th anniversary.
Like a reunion.
Yes. Yeah. And they're doing a great big reunion. And I am taking time to sit with the thought and the idea and trying to decide if I'm going to go. And I haven't made the decision yet, but I want to do it for my own sake. Right. I'm not going to do it for anyone else.
To please someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so these are the stupid little things in my life of okay, I'm going to listen to my own inner knowing, and I'm going to sit with this and decide whether this is what I want to do.
It seems like this is like a childlike decision, right? Well, that's where we're starting from. Because as early as we know, we were taught to not listen to ourselves.
Yeah. And I keep reminding myself that I'm going to have my own back. Yeah. I'm going to only do this if I genuinely want to do this. I am not going to put myself in a situation where I feel uncomfortable,
or someone maybe tries to make you feel less than or bad about your decisions or your choices.
Right. Everyone in my dad's family is fully in the church, and it could be a hostile situation. And I don't want to put myself in a place where I feel like I have to pretend to be something I'm not.
Right.
Where I feel the judgment on me.
Defensive. You don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, I want to still be a part of my family. These are my people. I love my cousins. Right. I have so many great memories, and it's not an easy decision. It's do I want to hide from my family and not be a part of things, or do I want to be a part of things? And how do I show up?
Yeah,
because I want to show up real.
Can you show up in a tank top?
Yeah, right. That's a question.
The little things like that.
Yeah. So I'm just really so proud of the fact that I've gotten to this place, and that we're teaching our kids to listen to their own selves now, right?
Seriously.
They get to start from...
I'm kind of jealous.
I know. Me too. I'm super jealous because they get to start at, 8, 10, 16, listening to their own selves.
Right.
They don't.
We just
have
figured it out in our
40s.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's great. I say that sarcastically because options and choices that they get to, where it was already set up for us. We already knew that these are the things we're going to do. It's what we're supposed to do. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, of course I'm happy. Of course I'm glad that they get to do that. I just wish I would have had the opportunity.
Wish we would have. Yeah. But we just have this one life, so we're gonna live out the rest of our lives doing exactly and only what we
I'm
want
trying.
to do.
Trying.
Yeah, I know.
It's work in progress.
It's still a work in progress, and that doesn't mean that life is always going to be easy.
Or
simple.
It's like you're not always going to get it right.
Right. But now, when we get it wrong, it's not the end of the world either. Like, to me, it's like, oh, just course correct. Yeah. Just make a new decision. It's just a step towards another decision. Everything teaches you something.
Yes. Well, if you're looking at it like that, it's all about your attitude and how you want to move forward. Yeah. And I think part of it is you got to stay in that. You got to be angry for a little bit. You got to work through that.
Well, you got to allow yourself any of the feelings that you have.
Yes.
And listen to them and not push them aside and bury them.
And it takes as long as it takes. Everyone's different.
Yeah, and that's tough for me. I have more feelings than I want to have.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
I know.
Just examine those, work through them. You don't have to stay there forever.
Yeah.
But I think you definitely have to feel some of that.
Yeah.
Feel it.
What was the thing that Amy Logan taught us? She says, your feelings are like a time capsule. They will wait for you.
Yes. They will.
They will still be there.
Like the laundry and the dishes, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, they will wait for you. And you will unearth them at some point.
Do it now, get it over with,
Work
get
through
it. Get through it.
Or not. So anyways, all right. Well, we've gone on long enough, I think.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. It's always good.
Oh, yeah.
We always have plenty to say about this stuff.
Get us going.
Thank you for listening. And if you are enjoying our podcast, we would love to have a donation. You can go to Mormon Discussions podcast or also dissidentdaughters.org and donate to our little podcast. We love it and appreciate it. And thanks for coming, and we'll be back, I don't know, next time.
Yeah,
whenever
thanks
that
for
is.
Listening. Yeah. When life allows.
Yes.